Two, three. All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Cryptid Junkies with Carlito and Tom. We're glad you made it here tonight. Just wanted to say, hey, how's everyone doing? Enjoy your Saturday. Enjoy your weekend. We have an eyewitness tonight. He's going to tell us some encounters he had. He's a good friend of mine. I've got the opportunity to be his friend, and I'm honored to be his friend. And he's a great guy. He is very sincere. He's honest, and he came to us to tell us his encounters. And I feel very honored for him to to do that for us because credible eyewitnesses are hard to come across these days. And I'm just glad that he came to us, and we're we're going to be able to get his truth out there because the truth getting out there is the most important thing. How we started this show, and what made us want to do this show of putting the truth out and getting people information and educating them and spreading awareness about these things that are out there. So with further ado, I will show it over to Carlito. Right, good evening, everybody. What do you have to say?
Yes, thank you, Tom. I had to turn down the volume on my phone, that way I can watch the live on there too. Hey good. Guys, how's everybody doing on this fantastic Saturday, man? I was working on my vehicles all day today. It was a nice and sunny day. I mean, thank God we're having a lot better weather down here in Texas now after that freeze we had about 3 weeks ago or a month ago, something like that. But yeah, we're doing real good now. So everything looks like it's getting back to normal, and everything's going good now. And me and Tom are happy that we're continuing our journey with doing these lives and encounters, live streams and interviews with our eyewitnesses such as Alan. We have Alan tonight, guys, and he's got a couple encounters, interesting encounters for us tonight, man. Personal encounters. So yeah, he's gonna be telling us about that here in a minute, and we're gonna pass the mic over to him so he can do a little introduction on himself, and we'll go from there. Okay, Alan, the mic is all yours, buddy.
Okay, I guess I'll start probably with the first interesting thing that happened to me. We live in western North Carolina in a very small rural community, and I'm an only child. I grew up about a mile away from my cousin, and it was a common thing. I'd go down and spend the day with him playing. I'd spent the day down there one day. We had these huge Tonka toys that we played with. My favorite was a big Tonka dump truck and a crane.
I remember those.
Well, we were behind his house, and behind his house there was a little small footpath, just narrow enough for one person, and it led out from the backyard across the creek beside a little box that my uncle was raising trout in. It had a screen door for a lid, and then it opened up into kind of an opening under a big pine tree, and it was all pine straw underneath there. And we'd been playing with those Tonka toys there, and my mother showed up to pick me up, and so we were gathering our things up to leave. And he was in front of me, and I was in the rear, and I had a Tonka toy in each hand. And I heard a noise, and I just instinctively turned around and looked. And all I can tell you is it was very tall, it was very big, it was covered in brown hair, and it was standing on two legs. And that's all I needed to know. And at that point, I knocked my cousin down on his face, dropped the Tonka toys, and ran straight over the top of him. Ran as hard as I could, and when I came around the corner of the house, my feet almost went out from under me. So I grabbed the drain pipe to steady myself, and when I did, I jerked it loose from the house, and I just slung it and kept going. And I ran and jumped in my mother's car and locked all the doors. Well, they came outside to see what all the commotion was about, and my mother had convinced me to unlock the doors, and they kept asking me what I saw. Well, I didn't know what I had seen, and they kept saying, well, did you see a bear? And I said, no, I didn't see a bear. And see, I was 7 years old, and I was at the age of about 3, I could tell you the name of every dinosaur that there was. And people would go, how do you pronounce those words? So I was a pretty smart kid, and I knew it was not a bear, but I had never heard of a Bigfoot, and so it was beyond my conception. The first time I ever actually heard of one, we went to movie theater to see Walt Disney's The Living Desert, and they showed the Patterson video. And anyway, my cousin was in front of me, and like I said, I knocked him down and just ran over the top of him. It scared him so bad, he didn't bother to stand up and look back to see what scared me. He just took off running. And interestingly enough, to this day, he still doesn't really believe that I saw anything.
Wow.
And anyway, I was scared to death, and but I never felt at the time like it was any threat to me, or it appeared to make any threat. I'm sure it was just curious. It was watching us, and I don't know how old it was or whatever. It might have been 6 foot tall. It might have been 8 foot tall. It was just big, to me, and it was covered in air.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't really take long enough to draw a picture of it, but I got out of there. And anyway, I was really nervous about being in the woods for quite a while after that, and I kind of overcame it because that's the only thing there was to do, was to go fishing and go up in the woods. We would stay in the woods all the time. And when I would catch the school bus in the morning, I would hear a whack on a tree, and I couldn't think of a bird that would be big enough to do that. And now way off on another ridge, I'd hear another whack on a tree. And this
like one of those knocks, those famous knocks on the trees.
Yeah,
that's
just
what
like
you
somebody taking a stick of firewood and smacking a tree. Of course, later on, I found out that that's the way of communicating.
Yeah, well, you didn't know that when you were a kid.
Yeah, I had no idea. When all those years, you wondered what that was. And that, as I was an adult, I was watching a documentary, and they were talking about them doing the tree knocking, and I was like, oh, that's what I was hearing, and I'm sure they probably watched me every morning as I got on the school bus out of curiosity. But, I believe it's just another one of God's creatures. It's highly intelligent. I think it's on the near intelligence level as us. It's got highly evolved senses of smell and taste and hearing, and knows its worst enemy is man. And so it avoids us at all costs, and occasionally it gets careless or curious or whatever, but that's my thoughts on it. I don't think it's anything, some monster or some, it's just another living, breathing creature, just like everything else in the world, like the deer or whatever. But that it has a different mentality than your average animal. It has a mentality like us.
Right.
And I think it's like the missing link between great apes and man.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Anyway, this is a very mountainous region. I mean, I'm right down in the tip Appalachian Mountains. So, this is a good place for them. It's very densely populated, more so then than it is now. We've got a lot of people who've moved here, but when I was a kid, it was very densely populated.
Hey, Al, have you ever noticed any tree structures or trees bent over or like X formations when you were younger out in those woods?
There's trees bent over, but I've never noticed anything that looked, that I would think was a structure or
man-made or something.
We it's a tree bent over every once in a while, but
right.
we didn't give it that much thought.
Right.
And like I said, I never even had heard of a Bigfoot until I was, in probably my early teens. And of all things, I went to see the movie The Legend of Boggy Creek, and that scared me scared the daylights out of me. And when my dad built an addition on our house and put my bedroom in the basement, I had him build it with no window because I was afraid that during the night that this thing would be looking at me from outside. And so I had a phobia about that. And I just was a little nervous for a long time, but I never felt like I said, that it was something that was trying to, kill me or cause me any harm. It was just another one of God's creatures.
Right. Hey, Alan, did you get a good look at his face or his eyes or anything like that? No?
I can tell you is it was big and standing on two legs and covered in hair, and that's all I took time to see. It was really it scared me really bad.
Wow.
at age 7 years old, and you're seeing something you've seen before, and it's huge.
Absolutely.
That was all I needed to know.
Wow, 7 years old. Wow, that's quite
you saw
scare.
something.
Go ahead, Tommy.
He froze up on us there.
Yeah, a little bit. That's what I noticed. I noticed the image is also a little like the pixelation is a little off than usual.
Well, this was all new to me, so I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, Tom. I guess Tom's froze a little bit, and he should be back here in a little bit. Let me go ahead and unlock the room so he can join us again. Okay, unlock the room. Okay, it's unlocked. Okay, so can you continue with your encounter, Alan, while Tom gets back? He should be back shortly.
Well, that's pretty much the only time I ever saw anything. But there was an instance where we had been out to an old dump near the local dam, and the dump had been closed down for a while. But we would go out there and take 22 rifles and shoot rats, because there were rats everywhere. And
wow!
It got right about dark, and we decided because we had to walk about 3/4 of a mile to get back to the car, because there was a gate to get in that you couldn't just drive in; you had to walk in. And it was about sundown, and we were walking back, and we could hear something in the woods walking along with us, and we would stop, and it would stop, and so we'd stand there for a minute or two and listen, and then we would start walking, and it would start walking. And so we walked a little faster, and it walked a little faster. And by the time we got to the car, I mean, we had rifles too, but I was scared to death. And, that was the only other instance I ever had anything remotely where I felt like it might have been, but I consider that too. It might have been a panther that was following us, because we do have those deer.
Right. Yeah.
That's another thing that the so-called experts claim doesn't exist, but I know better. I've seen one. My father's seen one, and one chased my great-great-grandfather's, or my great-grandfather. But just more animals that our scientists don't know anything about.
Right. I see Tommy said he's going to reset his laptop. I have a question from Al Santariga. He says, ask Alan if they ever seen any footprints in the woods when he was a kid. Did you ever see any footprints?
But my dad, about when he was a boy, there was a track near his house where he was growing up, my grandpa's place. And which was, interestingly enough, not even 1/4 of a mile from where I had my siding. And there was a track in the sand there that they had never seen before. And they got this old man that supposedly had knowledge of every living creature in the country. And he looked at it, and he couldn't discern what this track was. And my dad told me that that's what he suspected it was probably a Bigfoot. And my dad moved out of our old home place into a different location it's been nearly 30 years ago. And he put his house in an area where it used to be wooded, up behind the same place where I'm talking about. And during the spring every year, something would sling mud up along the upper eave of the house, which was about 15 to 17 foot off the ground. And I mean, in a lot of mud too. And he couldn't figure this out. And the only thing he told me, he thinks that was in the path of where a Sasquatch used to come through, and it irritated it, because all of a sudden this house is there. We're back. Lost you.
Yeah, my connection dropped for some reason. I don't know why. Could be my kids, rambling up the games and stuff and the internet at the house. Who knows? But All that matters is I'm back. So sorry about the little dilemma.
No, it's okay, Tommy. Yeah, he was just telling us right now. I don't know if you were hearing about it, Tom, but he was telling us about the footprints, because Al Santoriga asked if he ever saw footprints around that area, which is a very good question. Also, Alan, I wanted to ask you: do you remember smelling anything when you heard that rustle in the woods? Or?
And I've got a keen sense of smell. Growing up here where I did you got to watch where you step where you're at, where I live, because there are copperheads, and you don't want to get bit by a copperhead. And once you know what copperhead smells like, I could be walking along through a wooded area and smell a copperhead and just stop and start looking around, and I would find it. But they have a distinct smell, and so I'm I have an awareness of something that smells out of the ordinary, but I didn't that day. I didn't have any notice it. But I've heard other people talk about a pungent smell, or of course in Florida, the skunk ape. But
the reason I was asking about the smell, Alan, because I had a similar situation happen to me when I was a kid. I was playing hide and go seek. I already told this story, but I'm just going to recap it really fast. I was playing hide and go seek with some friends. We were hiding in the woods, and I was hidden for a while, and nobody found me. And then I heard some rustling in the woods, just like you did, like steps and stuff like that. And I said, okay, somebody found me. And I was like, all right, you got me, blah blah blah, whatever. And nobody would answer. But then I was like, then I kept hearing the noises, like trees and branches, crackling or whatever. And I'm like, what the hell is that? So, I started walking back. I said, well, I don't know if that's somebody trying to play with me or play games with me or something, or spook me or something. But I started walking back towards the house, towards where we always met up. And I did smell something. I did smell like a dead animal smell.
Yeah.
With like some kind of like musk, like real, heavy musk. And that's what I've heard that Bigfoot smell like, you know what I mean? Like kind of like urine with like, I don't know, some
rotten meat.
Yeah, rotten meat. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, and I did
smell
that.
Even I was down in from it,
Right. Even though I didn't see anything like you did, but I smelled it and I heard it. So Now I got back to everybody where everybody had met up, and they're like, "No, we've been here for 10, 15 minutes. Where you been?" I'm like, "Oh shit, okay. Well, I thought somebody was back there with me."
If I would have seen a window or something, I would have took a good long look at it, But I just turned around and there it was, and that was all I needed to see. It scared me really bad. And,
especially at 7 years old, man. I can believe that.
Between me and it, fast enough. So.
Right.
And I did. I really got out of there.
You got any questions, Tom? Or
I got a quick question. Yeah, I got a quick question for you with the thing we were talking about before. When I was talking to you earlier, Al, have you ever heard the people mentioned the boogers or the catamounts to you when you were young? Have you ever heard that phrase being used in the South, the booger?
Well, yes. My grandmother talked about a booger get you in the wood, But when you say catamount, that's what we would associate with the Black Panther. I mean, like I was talking earlier, these so-called experts say these don't exist here. Well, wow, we got so many eyewitnesses. And there's a road very near me named Panther Top. Why would they name a road Panther Top? Duh. It's kind of like because there was a panther or somebody. And when I was a baby, my dad saw one in the field there across from the house. He had chicken coops, and he was getting ready for work early one morning, and one was out messing around his chicken coops, and he went out on the porch, and it was gone. And there was a story that my great-grandfather was walking across a pasture right about dark, and there he saw one coming out of the edge of the woods after him, and he was near the house, and there was a big creek with a footlog. Well, he was running. This thing was behind him. Well, he ran across the footlog. Well, when it got to the foot log in the creek, it paused, it stopped. Well, he stopped as soon as he got on the other side and started picking up rocks from around the base of the foot log, and he pelted it with rocks, and it ran. And I heard that story all my life. And then when I was, this was in the 80s, and I'd been out late one night, and it was like 1 o'clock in the morning, and I'm coming down a two-lane road, and it's pouring rain. And I met one walking on the side of the road, walking up, in the direction I was coming from on the opposite side of the road. And it looked like it was sick. You could see every rib on it. It didn't look healthy. And it was just glistening black because it was raining at the time. But, that's not even, what we started talking about. But, he mentioned catamount. That's what the word catamount,
Right.
the panther. Or as the old folks would call a painter. They wouldn't call him a panther. They would call him a painter. And they'd talk about him screaming and sounding like a woman screaming.
Yeah. Now, have you ever heard anything else out there when you were younger, like any Bigfoot calls, howls, or roars, something that kind of like you knew it wasn't a normal animal?
I haven't, but my father did.
Mm-hmm.
And he was convinced of it. He said it was the scariest thing he ever heard in his life. And they were camping at a cabin about 200 miles east of here. And he came back home and told me about that, and he was convinced that what it was. He said he never heard anything like it in his life. And said as far as he was concerned, he hoped he never did. Not again, I've heard a lot of the calls on, of course, television programs. It's a howling sound or whatever, but I never experienced that. The tree knocking, I heard plenty of it. But, and I never understood what in the world that could be like. Years later, I'm watching a documentary, and it was like, oh, how this light bulb goes off. That's what I was hearing all that time and never knew it. And it's probably a good thing I didn't know it. I would probably never rode a school bus again.
Yeah, no doubt. Hey, Alan, I wanted to ask you another question. Did you tell your parents what happened, and what did they say if you did?
Oh, yeah, because like I said, I ran and jumped in my mother's car and locked all the doors. And anyway, she was asking, that's the first thing she wanted to know is what's wrong. What did you, and I just told her, I saw something. I told her, I said, I don't know what it was. And she said, was it a bear? And I said, no, it wasn't a bear. And like I was telling you earlier, I was a pretty smart kid. I could tell you the names of all the dinosaurs when I was like 3 or 4 years old. I talked like an adult when I was at a very young age because I was an only child and I was around adults all the time. I wasn't around children and heard baby talk. I heard adult talk. And so, at a very young age, I talked like an adult.
Yeah. Well, Tom, did you get a chance to tell Alan about your encounters and things
we
going on with Bigfoot?
We kind of briefly did, but we were I was saving them for my Goomba from when we have them on for part 2. But Chris had some questions. If you want to go over them real quick, Alan.
Sure.
The first question is, how many different types of Bigfoot do you believe exist?
That's a good question. I think that there's more than one. I think there's variations in the species. I don't think it's just one cookie cutter, creature. They've been described as, some variations in color, some being, reddish and some brown. And, of course, in Florida, they call it the skunk ape because it has a pungent smell that is associated with it. And then there's so many other ones, and they do sound like there is a variation in subspecies. I guess that's what the word I'm looking for. I don't think they're just like a robin. They're all look just exactly alike. I think they're like humans. They're just like one of us has one color hair, one color eyes, or I think that. There are variations in species, is what I think. Of course, that's just my opinion. You know, it's not based on anything. But.
Right, right. Well, I mean, there's been so many, speculations and research done that people do, they do have the different species, chart out there for people to know, orangutan, the skunk ape, and all these, different type of variations. So, they got them all over the place.
Rock apes, yetis, all that.
Yeah.
But, also,
yeah.
Chris also wanted to know, have you heard of any strange experiences in your area recently?
Yes, I have. I went to there's a Bigfoot museum in Blue Ridge, Georgia. And there had been a local who was there at the museum, told him about, there'd been actually 2 encounters that I was told about that came through that museum that were both from this area. And one where a Bigfoot was looking in the window. And the guy went out on the front porch with a rifle, and it took his rifle from him and bent the rifle. And said it took his hand and pushed him back into the house with one hand, and he went several feet back into the house. And it said that for days, weeks, he had a bruise on his chest with the impression of a huge hand.
Wow.
And there were some footprints taken. There was a lot of scuttlebutt that the police were called. There was a cover-up. So, I don't know. This is all.
They probably said it was a bear.
Yeah, most likely.
It was a bear. Yeah.
Bear attack.
Yeah. And another woman close by here was cooking on a grill. And she left the grill unattended and went into the house, and it attempted apparently to take food off the grill and got burned. And it jumped off of the porch and left tracks in some sand they were using to make concrete. And that's another story that I heard through the museum down there. That's Expedition Bigfoot is the name of the museum, and I highly recommend it if you're interested in this this type of thing. It's a good place to visit because they have went to a great extent to document a lot of stuff. They have plaster cast or copies of plaster cast. They went to a lot of trouble to educate the public on this subject. So if you're in that area, it's Blue Ridge, Georgia, and it's very well worth the time to stop and visit.
Hey, Alan, I wanted to ask you, where exactly are you from and where did the encounter happen? Because I remember you mentioning North Carolina. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm in a town called Murphy.
Cool.
And we're right on the very western tip of North Carolina. I can drive to Tennessee in about 20 minutes, and I can drive to Georgia in about 10.
Wow.
So I'm right in the very tip.
And the Appalachian. Yeah,
exactly. And the area where I grew up at, where that happened at, was on a place called Candy Mountain. Candy Mountain was originally named Canada Mountain, and the locals and their slang over the years, they called it Kennedy, and then it went to Candy. And so it's to this day it's stuck. It's called Candy Mountain, and it is a mountain. Matter of fact, when I was growing up, if it snowed, there would be while the rest of the kids had to go back to school, I'd be stuck for a few days because they couldn't get the school buses over the mountain. So it's up in a higher elevation. So that might be one explanation why that the big
mountainous,
area is a higher terrain.
Yeah.
A little harder to access, not as populated.
Yeah, mountainous region.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, also, did anybody in your neighborhood, your parents' friends, cousins, family members, or just people that live around your area, did anybody else have any encounters with something like that with Bigfoot?
Never. And I was always
wow.
Once I became a teenager, I became aware of what I had seen. Like I said, when I went to go see the Disney movie, The Living Desert, I was probably 10 years old, maybe. And they played the Patterson video and that was like a little bonus film that you got to see before the movie started, and that was the first time I had ever heard of Bigfoot.
Wow.
And I realized then, I said, that's what you saw.
Yeah.
So I became very interested. I bought every book I could get my hands on, read everything I could find, and actually befriended the man and woman, Wayne and Ramona Hibner. They're both deceased now, but they were in a couple of books, and they were friends of mine, and they told me a lot of experiences they had had. And they used to talk about there was a field they would go to at night, and there was a large stump, and they would sit on this stump back to back. And they said it would come out to the edge of the tree line, and they knew it was there, and they would try to communicate with it or try to coax it out. And they said that if there were certain things that they brought with them, it would not even come around. And that's why they thought it had a very highly evolved sense of smell.
Mm-hmm.
And they said if they had a flashlight, it wouldn't show up. They said it could smell the batteries.
Wow.
And they said if there was a gun, it wouldn't show up. It could smell the gunpowder.
The gunpowder, yeah.
You know, that's where we're talking a really highly evolved sense of smell.
Yeah.
Of course, hearing, and I'm sure vision too.
And I think, you know what, also, I think a lot of people don't give, Bigfoot credit for being an intelligent being, because, I think they're very intelligent, even though they look primate, like a primate, whatever. But I think they're very intelligent. Yeah. I think they might even be more intelligent than us, honestly, to be honest.
Absolutely. Yeah. They have an intelligence level that's beyond ours, because they've evolved. They have to live away from us and far from us, so their mind power is more than ours. They can use their mind, and they're everything about them is awesome.
And they have better, like, keener senses, as far as detecting, some different what we were saying the other day, frequencies, that are, that displace, the natural habitat for them. They know it, like, just by smell, by listening, to the air. They know if somebody's in there that's not supposed to be.
They could tell you're walking from a half a mile away. Going to the woods. They could tell you're there because they know something's not right. They can feel you.
Yeah, and they can see you and hear you before you can see or hear them.
Exactly.
I know that's for sure.
And if they don't see you, their spotters in the trees are going to see you.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah. That's
I think that they're intelligent enough to know that we are their only real enemy. They're the only creature on Earth that could probably do them harm. I'm sure they're not afraid of any other animal on Earth than a human.
Yeah. And, I don't either.
Yeah, and that's just they're very smart for them, because they're correct. Because there have been many people who, why don't somebody kill for it? To me, it's like killing another human.
Right.
People have different mentalities on this, different thoughts.
Yep. But see, like, I think it's like more the intelligent people that know that they're intelligent and even more intelligent than us. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And there's people that think that they're dumb, or they're primates. You know what I mean? Basically, and I think a lot of people don't realize that they're smarter than us. You know what I mean? To survive out there in that wilderness. You know what I mean?
Evolved creature.
Evolve, yeah. Hey, I got another question from Al Santoriga. Says, ask Alan if there were mines or caves where he's seen these Sasquatch.
Were there what?
Mines or caves in that area?
No, there weren't. Not that I was aware of, because there would have been. I would have been all in them as a kid. We knew every rock outcropping, ever. We were all over the woods when I was growing up. I mean, we camped out like it was, we feared nothing. We would, like I said, that scared me at the initial beginning of that, but I overcame it because, like I said, what else was there to do? We didn't have video games. We only got 3 channels on television, and one of them was snowy.
Yeah.
So, you know, and then too, you know, that's the first thing you do when you came in from school was get something to eat, head out on your bike or head out, you know, take off walking down the creek to go fish or, you know, whatever. But I grew up in a much simpler time than what we got right now.
Yes, yes, absolutely. My last, well, pretty much my last question, Alan, is that what do you think about Bigfoot now that you know what they are, now that you've seen many videos and done some research? What do you think about a Bigfoot all in all, like overall? Like, is it benevolent or is it malicious or is it, just somewhere in between? Or
Well, there again, it very the same with people. You know, and some people are very good natured and polite, nice, kind, wouldn't harm a flea, you know. And then you've got people that are cruel hearted, evil, just mean people. You know, there's each person is an individual, and I believe that a Bigfoot or a Sasquatch is just like a human in the fact that their dispositions or personalities or whatever are individual. And, you know, that's another thought. You know, they're not just like a possum, you know, that you got to, you know, they eat, sleep, and make baby possums. You know, these things they're like we are.
mm-hmm.
Okay, Al, I know we're talking about Bigfoot, but I know we were talking about some other things too when we first started talking. Would you like to start sharing that? Because you actually have factual evidence on things that you eyewitnessed, actual, not footage, but you have, actual documentation of the evidence that you observed. Would you like to get into that?
I don't mind. And this is another thing. This is where I learned to really be very careful about who you tell or talk about it, because I was ridiculed horribly. My dad and I ran a business in our local town, and I'm known by everybody. And I was friends with everybody. And of course, when this happened to me, I wanted to tell the world because, wow, I saw a UFO up close and personal. And, you know, and then here again tonight, if anybody's listening, going, who's going to see a Bigfoot and a UFO both in their lifetime? Right here. This is the guy. And this has been in 1995. And I went about 100 miles away to a car club meeting. I was really involved in a car club, and I was really gung-ho about it. And we had a meeting, which just happened every, like, quarterly, once every, so many months, and once every 4 months, and or 3 months, pardon me. And I went to Sevierville, Tennessee, and I went up a 2-lane road called Highway 411. And on the way back home, it was about 10 o'clock at night, and we're coming down Highway 411 between Sevierville, which is near Gatlinburg, and a little town called Maryville. And it's really a twisty little 2-lane road. It's really back in the mountainous region too. And I was coming down through there, and coming back home, and I topped over a hill, and when I did, there was all these lights. And my first thought was, what is this, a football stadium? Because it was just the world was lit up. And as I got closer, I realized what I was looking at. And it was a huge triangle-shaped object. It was hovering. I could have shot it with a BB gun. It was so close to the ground.
Wow.
Right over the top of a farmhouse. And it's sitting there making no noise. It's covered in lights. It's like a black triangle. The thing that stood out to me first was this shaft of light coming out of the bottom of it. And when I say shaft of light, it was like a tube, perfectly round. It didn't, like a flashlight, you'll shine a flashlight and the beam flares out. Or this was perfectly round, and it was a bright white bluish light, almost like a fluorescent light or something. And this light was coming straight down to this farmhouse, and there was a light identical on the nose of it, and across the rear of it were 4 huge yellowish lights. I don't know if they were like afterburners or what. And then the weird thing were these little tiny lights, I think red and green lights on the belly of it that were flashing like an airplane. But this thing was huge. It was the size of a football field. It was making no noise and was not moving. And the next day, I drew a sketch of it. I'll be happy to show you.
Wow.
Let's see if this, you guys, is that visible?
Well, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
That's pretty awesome. If you could slide it to your right a little bit more, Al. Yeah, there you go. A little more. That's perfect right there. Wow. And it shows the white beam you're talking about, the red lights under the belly, and then the circles like the afterburners behind it. That's pretty awesome, man. I mean, that's like the perfect description of a triangular thing that we were talking about that, everybody was seeing out in Phoenix back in '97, Arizona.
Yeah. Phoenix lights.
I saw something on Unsolved Mysteries about the same shape, and I can't remember. I want to say it was Belgium or France. I can't remember which one. And so when we got into Maryville, at first I wanted to stop the car. I had this girl she and I lived together for about 6 years. She was with me, and I wanted to stop the car and get out and look at this thing. I mean, because it was so close to me, and I was just awestruck. And she wouldn't let me stop the car. She was scared to death. I had no fear at all. I knew what I was seeing. I was thrilled to death because I had always wanted to see one. And I was taking it in. She wouldn't let me stop the car, so I'm creeping. I'm going just crawling down the road looking at this thing. And I look in my rearview mirror, and there's a car behind me. And I knew it had to be looking too, so I just didn't worry about speeding up for this car because it was doing the same thing I was. It's sitting there looking at this thing. Mm-hmm. Well, I happened to think to look back at the car again, and the car was gone. I don't know if it turned off onto a side road or what, but it was gone. And I just kept watching this, and finally I'm to the point to where I'm having to look back over my shoulder and keep watching the road at the same time. And it was like somebody turned a light switch off. Gone, just like that. Now I don't know if it turned all its lights off or whether it was gone, but it was gone from sight instantly. And so we were excited. We were talking back and forth, and I couldn't wait to get to Maryville. And the first gas station I came to, I got out and ran inside and started asking, did anybody see it? Did anybody see it? Everybody's like, I was insane. What are you talking about? And I said, there's this huge UFO. It was just right up the road. I said, call the sheriff's department. And they did. They called the sheriff's department and said, well, you must have saw a helicopter, buddy.
Yeah,
right. And
that figures.
Anyway, I knew that nobody took us seriously, so we just went and got in the car and started home. Then
real quick, Alan. Real quick, I got a question for you.
Sure.
One's from Al, one's from me. Now, did you hear anything? Did it sound anything when you were underneath it? Did you hear? Okay.
Complete silence.
Okay.
That's another thing. It really, because this thing was so huge. How could it sit there suspended in midair and not move and make no noise?
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, we started home. And I was excited initially. Then the thought hit me, wait a minute. If I could see them, they could see me. And I became afraid that they were going to find me and abduct me because I had already heard plenty about abductions and things at this point. And I was scared to death. I was watching the sky the whole way home. And the sad part is we were like 85 miles from home.
Wow.
And I had to come up Ocoee River, which is a narrow, twisty road right off the edge of the river. And you don't keep your eyes on the road, right off in that river, you're gone. And I was still scared. I was still looking up, watching for this thing to come back. And then when I got home, I was afraid to go to bed. I was afraid they would come after me. So the next day, I got up and I called the airport up there. And I asked them if they had seen anything. And no, first I called the police department. They blew me off. Nobody had called it in. Nobody saw anything. And then they told me again, oh, you probably saw an airplane or a helicopter. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm not a fool. You know, I know what I saw was not a helicopter or an airplane. And when I called the airport, I got a guy on the phone who was a helicopter pilot. And he says, listen, he says, I've talked to friends that have seen unusual things before. And he says, I believe you. He says, I think you really did see something. He says, I want to give you a number to call. And he gave me the number to the UFO Reporting Center in Seattle, Washington. And so I called up this number and got on the phone with Mr. Peter Davenport, who's the director. And he asked me, he says, will you wait a minute? And he says, I would like to record our conversation. We'll have your permission. And I said, of course, you know, I'd be glad for you to record it. And so, there's proof of that. Can you see that?
Oh, wow. National UFO Reporting Center. Wow. And, what does that contain, Alan? What does that contain?
My report.
You report everything that you.
Yeah, this was the tape recorded conversation when I called this and reported it, and then he informed me that I was not the only person who was seeing these triangle-shaped UFOs. He said he had been getting calls from all over the United States, and you know I was all excited then, and then he starts telling me, he says, now don't be surprised if somebody from the Air Force shows up to interview you. He says, and they're not going to be friendly. And he said, and also don't be surprised if is what we call them, the men in black, show up to interview you.
Right.
And of course, I never was interviewed by anybody, but he did talk about seeing dark-colored sedans with tinted windows go by your house, and I did many, many times, and I thought that my phones were bugged. And this time, the police and any government, they would drive Ford LTDs, and there were Crown Vics, and there would be these Crown Vics go by the house with black wheels, tinted windows. I mean, they total government car, you know. And I would see them, and I was on a side street where you could drive through, come back out on the other side into another street, and they would drive through. And this would be like, and I actually went and drove around the neighborhood to different streets to see if it was somebody who lived close by, and I was just seeing them come home. And that wasn't the case. And this went on for a long time, and I was really paranoid about it. And when I got home, I wanted to tell everybody I knew about, oh, guess what I saw? And then you get all these remarks, oh, you must have been smoking some good dope that night. Yeah. Or moonshine were you all drinking up there,
right.
You know?
Right.
Oh, did you hear Alex saw a UFO? And I learned real quick, keep your mouth shut.
Right.
And the girl that was with me was so traumatized within I can't remember, the week to 2 weeks, but she got to the point to where she refused to even discuss it and would get mad if I brought it up. Mm-hmm. She was in total denial. And that was in 95, and by the February of 96, we split up because our relationship began to decline from that point forward. Because
from after the encounter,
this, and I was in full acceptance. You know, I was
right.
I wanted to know more. What did I see? Where did it come from? And you know, I realized at this point the world was not as I thought it was, because I thought a pretty good understanding of the world and everything in it. And you know, then this comes along, and I really don't know anything. And to this day, I still don't know exactly. If our government has that technology, they really got something that they're keeping the on. But I don't see it. Sure. I can't imagine how something that huge could not be seen by everybody in the country. And you know, I don't understand why there weren't a lot more people besides me who reported this. And you know, I'm that's an official documented sighting. And I've wondered so many times, this car that was behind me, I know they saw it, and I'll never know who it was.
Have you ever wondered, Alan, what happened to that car if it veered off and, you know, left some or abducted, like, you know, like that?
Well, my first thought was it probably was somebody who lived close by there, and they just cut off into their driveway or cut off onto a secondary road. And I never thought about being abducted, but that thing looked like it was pretty well occupied over that farmhouse at the time, because that shaft of light was right down onto the house. And you know, I don't know, but an educated guess was that they were abducting somebody out of that house.
Right.
And this is about 10 o'clock in the evening.
Alan, so how old were you when that happened?
No.
Curious.
95. Let's see.
Were you like in your, you know?
I was in my 30s. Well, I was. I was in my late 20s.
Late 20s, maybe early 30s. Okay, cool. Wow. Hey, I have a question from Al. He wants to know: did you lose any time watching this craft?
If I did, I wasn't aware of it.
Oh, you weren't aware? Okay.
If I did, yeah. Like I said, there wasn't any time lapse or anything. I had, to my recollection or to my knowledge, it was full recognition of what was going on. I didn't have a lapse in time or anything, or end up one place after, unexpectedly. Right. The whole event kind of unfolded, and like I said, when it was gone, it was like somebody turning the light off. It was gone. It was a one of those things that's be careful what you wish for, because truthfully, I wish I'd have never saw it.
I've seen 3 UFOs in my lifetime, and yeah, it was just like that. No noise. They're just standing still. Honestly, I think they have some type of anti-gravity magnetic propulsion, where they use the magnetic field from the Earth, and you know how when you get two magnets and put north and the same poles on each side, you know how it pushes away.
Yeah, I understand.
That's what I think. That's what I think they use to push away from not falling to the ground and let
right.
Do the contrary instead of push away from it. Yeah.
I got a quick question for you, Alan. Now, this might seem a little weird, not awkward or nothing, but do you think that the girl you were dating was maybe contacted by the MIBs or the government to, silence her or interrogate her or scare her into not talking about it, and that's kind of what messed her up, or no?
If that happened, it happened without me even getting a clue of it, because it was just seemed like it was just a personal thing with her. It was too overwhelming for her to deal with.
Okay.
At first, you don't have any choice, because it's just kind of dumped in your lap, and then after it's over with, you have to come to terms with what you've seen and try to understand it and live with it. And like I said, I was so excited by it, I wanted to discuss it with other people, and I learned real quick, don't ever mention it. That's the last thing you want to do, because people will not take you seriously. And, it's all a joke. And my best friend, who was like my brother to me, God rest his soul, he's not with me anymore, he's dead. Even he ragged me about it. And it always bugged me, because I wondered in the back of my mind, did he really take me seriously? Or does he think this was all, I'm out there, and even if we would go on a trip and we would see a groundhog, if you seen a groundhog looking up in the sky, and he'd go, oh, he's looking for a UFO. It became a common joke between us. And then if we saw a dead groundhog on the side of the road, he'd go, the UFO got him. It was just I learned to live with it and just laugh with it, you know. And but it kind of bugged me because I don't think he ever really took me seriously.
I got a couple more questions for you. This one's from Eric. He wants to know if your girlfriend at the time saw it anymore after that night.
No.
No? Okay. And another question from Al saying, did you guys have any marks on your bodies or feel sick the day after?
No. No, I didn't.
No. Okay. Okay.
I was scared to death I was going to be abducted. And
Absolutely.
I don't think I slept that night. I think I stayed up all night that night. And what was funny was at the time I was a functioning alcoholic. I liked to drink, but only in the evening. And at that time we had so far to drive, I didn't touch any alcohol. I was never get behind the wheel of a car and even drink a beer. And we had a long drive. So that night, I hadn't even touched anything to drink. Now, when I got home, after all that, my nerves were so shot, the first thing I did was drink a beer, you know. And personally, today, to this day, I gave up alcohol years ago. I've been sober for 5 years now. But I was totally sober the night that happened. I had no drugs, no alcohol. I was straight as an arrow, as the saying is. And I'm as serious as I can ever be about this with you now. And I'm with a group of people who listen now who are open-minded, and they're not members of my community, and I don't feel I'll be ridiculed by this or anything, so that's why I feel comfortable talking about it with you. If we were local, I would be looking around to make sure nobody was close by to hear what I was talking about. So it's a subject you need to be very careful.
Careful, yeah, that's true. That is true. I've never told any of my encounters, my UFO encounters, outside of my family, like friends or anything like that. Never told them. Just maybe my ex-wife, my mother, my daughter, and I don't know, maybe my brother. So I mean, it's
my own parents to take me serious at first. My own parents, and that really got me. And then after they talked with me for a little bit, they realized they could tell that I really had seen something, and they became more open-minded. And then as time went on, they both saw things not as close as I did, but they saw unexplained things in the sky, and they became believers. You know, that there is other life out there that we don't know anything about. I can tell you this much: their technology is way beyond us, and I do believe Roswell happened. I do believe that's where we got a lot of our technology by reverse engineering. You know, they took the wreckage and the materials that they found there and got a lot of technology. And in the 50s, we went leaps and bounds in technology, and I think that's where it came from. Honest to do.
Yeah, good point.
Yes, absolutely. There's a question from Eric Ogle. He said, "Did she see it? Did she see it anymore after that night?"
No.
I'm guessing the UFO.
No.
We already got those questions.
Oh, you did? Okay, that's fine.
It's all good. There's another question from Al. Go ahead, get it. He just posted it.
Okay, he said, how many UFOs have he seen in his life? Was it just that one? Or did you?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I've seen lights that I couldn't explain, but seeing lights is one thing, but seeing a craft up close and personal that, too close for comfort, way too close for comfort. But at the time I was there again, I had no fear at all. I was excited. I knew what I was seeing. I'm getting the chance of a lifetime. I've got a close-up view of a UFO. And that was all grand until it sunk in, And that was a long ride home that night. A very long ride home. A very scary long ride home.
I can only imagine that ride home because you're worried about, that thing following you. Is it going to come get you? Is it going to get you and her? What's the possibilities? Anything could happen, besides, worried about, driving an empty car.
I saw them, and I'm sure they saw me. And I was worried that they might want to keep me from saying what I had seen. More as I was afraid of being abducted and my memory erased. And the possibilities were endless. I mean, 'cause I had no experience with anything like this, and only I had seen plenty on TV about it. And that's another point too. Is a lot of television documentaries I've watched, they would show a UFO with a shaft of light coming out of the belly of it. I mean, it's scary because what I'm seeing on TV is like the exact same thing I saw in real life, and that tells me that there's other people who've seen the same thing that I have. How would they know how to recreate it? And I mean, they can recreate it so vividly. I'm saying it's spot on. It's exactly the same type of light I saw coming out of this craft. And that was one of the most outstanding features that really blew me away was just, like I said, it was like a tube, a very huge tube,
Hey, Alan, have you ever watched the movie Fire in the Sky? And if you did, what do you think about that? Yeah,
I believe that. I believe it's true. Where the gentleman was abducted and his friends were accused of murdering him, and then he shows up on the porch of a store naked. Yeah, I believe it's real. I believe it's totally true.
Yeah, what was his name? Travis, what was it?
I couldn't tell you. I couldn't tell you. Now, they were Betty and Barney Hill. They were the first, I think, documented abduction. And they were a controversial couple anyway, because they were a mixed couple back in the 60s. But they were, to my knowledge, the first documented abduction. And then, like I said, it's always been a subject of interest to me way before I had a sighting. And I had never even realized, I was going to be one of the people that still walks right up into a situation like that. I wasn't expecting it. But
we have a friend that actually has a picture with that guy. What's his name? Tom?
Travis Walton.
Travis Walton, yeah, from the guy from Fire in the Sky. His name is Al Santariga. He came out with us last week, I believe, and he has pictures with him, man. Like he actually met him and had a one-on-one talk with him. So I was like, man, that's cool.
Yeah,
that's
cool. They hung out together, played guitar, just hung out for the weekend at an event. But Chris Cyrus has a question for you, Alan. He says, what do you think of the recent declassification of UFOs from the United States government? Do you think it helps bring discussion on the subject matter, considering you yourself has seen one?
I think that they're not even giving us a grain of salt.
Right. Yep. Exactly.
They're not even giving us a fraction of the material they have. For my own personal feelings, I'm afraid that they think that the public would be in a panic. It's just like when they did the radio program, War of the Worlds. It was a radio program, and people came into, 10 minutes into it and took it totally serious. They thought this was really happening, and it caused a widespread panic. And I think that if they really told the public what the truth was, I don't know, it might be disastrous. There are a lot of people who wouldn't believe it, or whatever. But I think that the government has declassified some things just to kind of get everybody off their back. But I think they'll never disclose what they, fully what they have.
Everything.
No, they do little tidbits with movies, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, Independence Day, the day the Earth stood still, War of the Worlds. It's all small disclosure and little tidbits, because if they put out the whole thing, it's just going to be mass hysteria, mass pandemic. Everyone's going to be, going crazy. Yes. I mean, like everyone says, you see what happened with the COVID pandemic, toilet paper, freaking bread, milk, meat, rice, everything was off the shelves. You couldn't get paper towels. I mean, it was crazy. You couldn't get nothing in the stores.
It's a funny thing you mentioned that. It was right before my wife's birthday, which was in March of last year, and I was watching a program on TV, Entertainment Tonight, I think, and they were talking about how these people were just fighting over rolls of toilet paper and paper towels in California. And I thought to myself, how silly is this? And they showed them, they were bringing a pallet out, and they were just out there fighting over it.
Yeah.
And so we went out and ate dinner the next night. And my cousin had called me that evening and said, you better get some toilet paper. He said, we went to, I forgot what store. And he said, there wasn't any there anywhere. And so we went out and ate dinner, and I told my wife, I said, let's go down to the Dollar General store down here and see if they've got any toilet paper just for the heck of it. And I said, if they do, buy a couple of packs just to make sure. And so we went down there, and there was plenty of toilet paper. So she bought 2 or 3 packs of toilet paper, and we came home, and it wasn't 2 days, and you couldn't get a pack of toilet paper anywhere. That quick. Boom.
No. People were waiting in line for 2 hours for stores to open up to get deliveries of toilet paper. People were buying, 2 big packages of it and loading their carts, and then he'd sell half of it for double the price because people were buying it.
Oh, yeah.
It's sad
it's
the way
like,
when things go crazy.
There was a guy who went around to 3 states and bought up all the hand sanitizer and was going to get rich off of it. But see, there just happens to be a law against profiting from a disaster. And the feds came in and they seized everything he had. And to save his own butt, he donated, it was like $20,000 worth of hand sanitizer that he had. That was what he had tied up was $20,000 into this. And he ended up having to donate it to get off the hook. But I don't have much sympathy for people who prey upon the public when there is a disaster. That's just wrong.
I think I remember that when it happened on the news because it was pretty much the guy bought a bunch of stuff and he's trying to sell it.
Yeah, they were out of Tennessee.
Well, anyone else have any more questions out there? You got any more questions, Carlito?
I was trying to think of something related to the UFO. I don't know if I forgot or I was just, too much into reading all the questions and comments on the chat. But, oh yeah, I remember I was going to ask you, Alan, do you think that there might be a slight chance that you were abducted that night and you just don't remember it and you were put back in the exact same place where you think you left off?
If they did,
has that ever crossed your mind?
If that happened, they have an excellent way of making you not remember it, because I don't remember anything out of the ordinary except for, well, there was plenty out of the ordinary, but I don't think I was abducted. I had no anything peculiar show up on me, any marks or anything that would make me suspicious. And I was awfully nervous for a long time. I was really afraid. I was really afraid of them coming at night and getting me. I did for years. Anyway, that was a long time ago. That was 1995.
1995.
Wow. 26 years ago.
I got a question for you. Based on what you encountered, do you think that what you kind of told us tonight and what you've encountered in your life, do you think that these things kind of correlate with the ancient aliens theory, how the chariots of the gods book? You think any of this relates to stuff that was in the Bible? Do you think anything correlates to what was written in the Bible and they didn't really know what they were talking about, so they described what they described, and what they were describing was alien stuff like chariots in the sky?
I understand what you're saying. Yeah, I follow what you're saying, and there are things
I know you're a biblical fellow,
that could be construed to that. And to this day, there's still scientists can't agree on how the pyramids were built or how the stones were cut. There was some technology way back in those days that they still can't explain. And why would these pyramids appear all over the world instead of just in one spot? Now, you're talking to a man who is a Christian. I believe in God. I believe that Christ is our Savior and died on the cross for us. I'm a Christian, and and I believe Christ was resurrected. And anyway, this whole alien thing, I don't understand how it fits in. I really don't.
Mm-hmm. And I was going to touch that subject with you, Alan. If you already answered it, but I was going to ask you if you were affiliated to any religious, to any religion actually, and if so, did that affect your religion after you had your encounter with the UFO?
No, not really. I mean, I am a Christian, and I was raised as a Baptist, and to this day, I'm a devout Christian. And matter of fact, as Tom knows, I quote scripture daily for a lot of people to read. But it didn't. Seeing this didn't make me question God or any. It just proves to me that there's way more than we know, and we don't know everything. And matter of fact, Adam and Eve didn't even know they were naked till they ate the forbidden fruit. So there's still plenty of things that we don't know about, and we will never know about.
Okay, because what I want to say, well, the reason I asked you that question about religion, right? Because since I've seen three UFOs in my lifetime, that hasn't affected me to my religion, because my religion is Catholic. Okay, right. I was raised Catholic, and I guess I'm always gonna stay Catholic, because I think Catholic is like very, very, rigid, inbred it into your mind that you really don't want to change to anything else. But that's the way Catholic is. But what I'm trying to say is that I do believe in God. It hasn't changed anything for me. Those 3 encounters with UFOs hasn't changed anything for me as far as doubting God or anything like that. So like basically what I'm trying to say is I still believe in God, but I do believe in UFOs. So like I believe in both, even though normally they're not supposed to coexist. It's either one or the other, but I do believe in both. That's what I was trying to get at.
That's good, because the Pope said he would. The Pope actually said, he came out and said he would baptize an alien. So I mean, it's kind of the Pope. I think it was 3 or 4 years ago, the latest Pope. Well, we have 2 questions from Al Santoriga. If you got a second, Alan.
Sure.
All right. I guess the first one is, when you seen the UFO, did it have any effect on your car? You had a punch buggy, right? A Beetle, Volkswagen car club.
I was a member of a Volkswagen club, but I was actually in a Hyundai.
Okay.
I was in a Hyundai, and no, it didn't affect the car in any way, not at all.
Okay.
I know I've heard of where cars and like radios or watches and other things have been affected by UFOs, but just have no effect whatsoever.
Wow.
And let's see. Do you think that the aliens are extraterrestrial or interdimensional?
That's a good question. I don't know. I've never actually seen one, but I think they are another life form, and the Earth is a tiny speck when you look at the bigger picture. There's a whole lot more out in the universe than just Earth, and we don't know what God created. This is so vast that. It's beyond our conception. And I'll tell you an interesting thing, though. We've got a quest for us to have space travel. Always we wanted to go to the moon. We wanted to go to this thing. You know what that's all about? Gold. That's the whole reason they wanted to go to the moon. It was a quest for gold.
Yeah.
That's if they could find gold on the moon in vast quantities, and see that's a hush thing behind space travel. But that is one of the reasons for space travel, is that, and when they brought back some moon rocks, the moon rocks were so valuable, they were more valuable than gold ever thought about being, and there was somebody actually stole a moon rock. If you look into this, you'll find out I'm telling you the truth, and he got caught up with it. It got returned. But that is a big key to why we're so interested in traveling in space. You know, not to put a colony on another planet. It's to see if there's precious metals on another planet.
Yeah.
That's what's powered the explorers from, you know, DeSoto on back. You know, way back. You know, gold has been what has been driven, you know, Cortez and the Mayan civilization. And in the Bible, gold is mentioned many, many times. You know, gold is the most precious thing and has been forever. You know, I'm jumping off topic, but
no, that's not off topic. That's interesting. I don't think I've heard the gold with the moon rock, but I've heard of the story with the guy stole the moon rock and he tried to sell it and he got caught by the FBI. It was on one of those, you know, science channels, and it was just a big scam. It was a big sting how he got it. Like he actually, yeah. I think he stole it. He worked at that museum. He stole it and he put a fake one in place of the one he stole, and then he tried to sell off the real one, and he was trying to sell it in the black market, and somehow, you know, who he was communicating with was an undercover FBI agent or whatever it was, you know, undercover agent, and they stung him somewhere. He was trying to get like, you know, $3-4 million for it, and it's
which
crazy.
Wasn't a function of its true value.
Yeah, exactly.
It's insane.
He didn't know what he had.
Yeah, well, he did. He did in a sense, and in a sense, he didn't. Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, let me ask you something, Alan. Do you think, or no, better yet, what do you think about the theory that I've seen in a lot of places that people, how do you say? They confuse the entity of God, and it wasn't actually a God. It was actually an alien that came down with superpowers that supposedly, you know, Jesus had and all that, and he came down in the form of a man. What do you think about that? Do you think that's?
I think that's hogwash.
Okay.
Because I believe in God and I believe in creation. I believe, like I said, in Christ. I believe in Christ resurrected. I believe the entire Bible. It's the greatest book ever written, and that's our true history there from the beginning. You know, these people that want to think that, you know, that God was really an alien. You know, well,
yeah. What do you think
God
about that?
I know one
up a little
thing.
bit.
Yeah, I know one thing. I know one thing is that when you think about it, what he's saying, you know, on that part, they. That's good. Now,
I'm losing you.
Are you there, Al? All right, I think we're losing Alan.
Yeah.
We're losing you, Alan. I'm going to talk real quick if you got a second. You know, I think a lot of this people say there's, I wouldn't say reports, but a lot of people talk about these aliens, you know, the beings. A lot of people say that they are fallen angels / demonic, and they are deceiving us, making us believe that they are aliens, but they're actually these demonic fallen angel beings with their craft. They're traveling from dimension to dimension, but it's actually, you know, they're deceiving us doing that, making us believe that they're the aliens. So what's your take on that, Carlito?
Man, I don't know, bro. I don't know what, I mean, there's just so many different things, but I don't know. I really don't know. I mean, there's many speculations about, you know, God and aliens, you know, having some type of relation, but I don't know, man. I can't really, you know, I'm open to different ideas, but I'm not, you know, how do you say, I'm not, you know, trying to lean towards one or the other, you know what I mean? I'm just kind of like neutral about all that. That's where I'm at with that, Tommy.
Yeah, we kind of lost Alan. We're getting close to wrapping it up, so I'm just going to message him that thanks for coming on. It's just funny how we're talking about certain things tonight. It's funny how we're talking about certain things tonight, and then I got you know, I got booted from the you know, from the live group, and then he just got booted from it. So, you know, what's going on there? Who do we piss off tonight?
You know what? I think this is the first time that this happened to us, like where somebody got booted out like that, just out of nowhere.
And we
Because
froze up. Yeah.
and we froze up. Yeah, you had to leave and come back and all that. It might be the subject that we're touching, because yes, I do think they watch everything, and if they think something's not a threat in any way for them, then they just let it continue. But if it is, then that's where they intervene and stop or whatever, or how do you say interrupt like they did us just now. So I mean, I don't know. It could be a very a sensitive topic, about God and aliens. And somebody just mentioned that in the I think it was Eric or somebody. They just mentioned that. No, actually it was Craig answered. He said, yeah, that's a great possibility that is true. And no, Felipe said that could be a sensitive subject. So yeah, I think we touched a pretty sensitive subject about that, but it's okay. I mean, we got what we got, and everybody can go back and watch the video, once this is done, once we finish the video. And so what else you got, Tommy?
I want to thank our buddy Alan that came on tonight, because he actually reached out to me about a month and a half ago, and he was telling me about he had some encounters and he was kind of nervous about telling them, and he opened up to me. I was very fortunate to have him do that. And we spoke for a good amount of time. He told me about all of his encounters and his experience and his religious beliefs and his accounts and whatnot. And I'm just happy he came on here tonight and showed with us and got to know him a little more and got to hear about his encounter. So I'm just glad everyone got to hear that tonight. I'm glad all you guys showed up tonight. Everyone in the chat. All of our family, our friends.
Yes.
All the people in the group.
Thank you, everybody. Marvin showed up. Al, B. Moss, Chris, who else showed up? Craig,
Eric, Mendoza,
Felipe.
Yep. Who else we got?
Charlie.
All right.
Charlie, Kylene. Yep.
We got the Goomba, Al Santariga, the Godfather over here. Forget about it.
Forget about it. Yeah, so thank you, B. Thank you, Marvin. Thank you, everybody that showed up, man.
Thank you.
We do this out of love, so what you see is what you get. So
yep. We shoot from the hip, and that's all we do. We give it to you like it is. We don't cover nothing up. What you're getting is real deal. Have a good night, everybody. See you next week.
Yes. Thanks everybody for coming, and we'll see y'all next week. Okay. Later. We're out. Peace to you. Bye.